Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Another week, Paul. I'm excited to bring out our guest. Mark Shaefer is going to be coming on the show here in a couple minutes. How's your week been, man? What's been going on?
It's been going good. One night I couldn't sleep, and so I just started pondering things. And I had a question. It would be a good ask Paul anything, but let's do role reversal. Let's ask Justin this question.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm scared, Paul.
Okay. Hypothetically speaking,
Okay.
if you met yourself on the street,
Mm-hmm.
do you think you would be friends with yourself? Do you think you would root for yourself? Why or why not?
Okay, there's so many different other questions that come in. Do I know it's me, or is it just like someone that has a personality exactly like me?
It's somebody that, let's just say it's some you don't know it's you.
Okay.
But yeah.
I think so. I think nowadays, like, the way that I interact with people is different than it was, 5 to 7 years ago. So I would say yes, 100%. That I would end up being friends with myself, or a person that had that same personality. I like me some me, Paul. I like and I think people might think that's conceited or like, oh, well, how can you say that? You have to like yourself before you can really like someone else. Those people that are in relationships that fall apart, that are looking for that validation, they're trying to find that love in someone else. Sometimes it's that they don't love themselves, and so they're looking for that validation from someone else. So now where I'm at in the headspace wise, man, I enjoy my own company. I've had friends give me crap. Now, this was before the virus, so I don't want to put it in that context. I would go to the movies by myself. I'd go to eat by myself. Like, I don't have a problem, being out in public if, and just enjoying my own company or being at the house and reading a book. That's not an issue for me. And I know that some people do have that, where like, I need to be around people. I need to be involved in what's going on. Or I've had friends before that they would go out to lunch by themselves, but then be on the phone the whole time talking to someone else. So did you really go to lunch by yourself, or did you just like have like a virtual lunch with someone via the phone? So to answer the question, yes, I think I would get along with someone with my similar personality. So.
Excellent. Well, that's good for you.
I was scared what the question was going to be. I was like, oh no, who knows what kind of question Paul's going to ask. But what's your take on that aspect? On like, being authentic to where you like being around yourself.
Are you asking me to answer that question? Or are you asking me, what are you asking me there?
Well, like the aspect of like people that don't, thinking about that there could be a no answer to that question. No, I don't think I'd get along with myself. I think there's an issue there if you say no.
Yeah, but I think if somebody says no, I think how honest. That is so honest. They're being honest with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
No. And if they're aware of that, maybe now they can make changes in their personality. So I think that is so awesome and so powerful. If somebody says no, I think to myself, wow, what strength that they had to admit that. Because that's not easy to admit. Admit that you wouldn't be friends with yourself. That takes strength and power. So I think that's the first step of recovery, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And looking at that, I think, if you would ask me, would I be friends with myself 5 years ago? I think the answer would be no. completely different way of interacting with people, a different type of mindset. So yeah, if you can have that insight into yourself and go, hey, now there's some things I need to change. So that, I think that's an interesting question to ask people and to see what their response is. And like you said, you could get the blatant answer, oh yeah, I'll be friends with myself. But would you really? And if you answer no, I think that would be an honest answer, but figure out why. Why is it a no? Is it because you're not being authentic? You realize that there are things that you need to adjust in your own life. So yeah, I think that depending on how truthful they answered, whether on the yes to no scale, you could find some interesting insight into what they need to do to adjust what's going on. But yeah, me 5 years ago, no, I don't think we'd be friends. But me today, yeah, we'd be friends. So excited to bring out our guest. Before we bring out our guest, let's touch on our sponsor again. Our sponsor from the beginning of the show has been Frontline Standard. Frontline Standard Apparel is a veteran and law enforcement-owned apparel company, and they're based out of Texas and run by a former U.S. Marine. And they donate $1 of their profits to every item that's bought to a nonprofit organization that supports American heroes and first responders. I like their gear, Paul. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now, red, to remember everyone deployed. I know you and I wear their stuff on a regular basis. You can reach out to them on Facebook and Instagram under Frontline Standard Apparel. And if you message them directly and mention the Actions and Limits podcast, you can get 35% off your entire order. So again, thank you, Frontline Standard, for being our sponsor. So Paul, I'm excited to bring out our guest. Mark Shaefer. He's a globally recognized keynote speaker, educator, business consultant, and author. His blog, Grow, is hailed as one of the top marketing blogs in the world. Mark has worked in global sales, PR, and marketing positions for more than 30 years and provides consulting services as executive director of Schaefer Marketing Solutions. He has advanced degrees in marketing and organizational development, holds 7 patents, and is faculty member of the Graduate Studies program at Rutgers University. And for 3 years, Mark studied under the late Peter Drucker. Really excited to bring him out. So everyone welcome Mark Shaefer to the show. All right, Mark, welcome to the show. We're so excited to have you. Man, your bio is pretty impressive.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. Thanks for having me.
We've been, and I know Paul and I have been excited to get you on the show because we've had to reschedule a couple of times. We're definitely excited to get you on here, and we're looking forward to hearing what you got going on, Mark.
All right.
So how'd you get into the speaking world? Like how did you get on this path where you're out here and sharing your insight with everybody?
Well, I had a great career in marketing in the corporate world for about 27 years, and then faced some personal issues where my company wanted to transfer me to Europe. And I was in a family situation where I really couldn't go to Europe. So I kind of, tried to look for other solutions for about 6 months and decided, this is a good time for me to try something else. I think financially I was kind of okay. I had a buffer, could take some risks. So I started consulting and teaching about 12 years ago. And I think, Justin, the thing that really was the catalyst for a lot of success was putting content into the world. So I started blogging sort of on a whim and blogged like when I felt like it. And after about 9 months, I realized that like all the business benefits I was getting was coming through the blog. And I needed to get more serious about that. And then that led to some opportunities to write books. And then when the books came out, I was being invited to speak. And a lot of my income comes from consulting. That's what I love the most. I'm a marketing strategist. And but my speaking career has taken off as well. And that's growing very, very quickly. And I think it's all based on my personal brand, on the reputation I've created through my content.
Talk about your speaking career right now with COVID-19. Obviously, a lot of times when you're speaking in front of a large audience live.
Yeah.
Where do you see that going forward with this COVID-19 on how you're going to be doing speaking engagements for the foreseeable future?
Right now, that's dead. Look, I'm facing the same challenges that a lot of people are. And that is, within a few days, I became irrelevant. And that's really the heart of strategy for small businesses right now, is to think about, we have to consider where people are right now. And look, I didn't do anything wrong. It's not my fault. It's not that I didn't plan or something like that. It's just that this is truly an unprecedented event in the history of the world. And so, all of my live speaking events obviously were moved to the fall. We'll see how that goes.
Sure.
There are a lot of online events and opportunities, but what we're seeing right now is that typically there's an expectation that if it's an online event, it doesn't pay or pays a lot less, right? So it may not be viable for a lot of people who are considering a speaking career. So, what I'm doing right now is trying to reconsider. I'm a teacher in my heart, right? So whether I'm doing a blog or a podcast or a book or consulting or a speech, I'm a teacher. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm still a teacher, but maybe I need to be teaching in a different way right now. I need to be teaching something different right now, okay? So I'm trying to reimagine myself, reinvent myself for the needs of the marketplace right now. And then I've written extensively about how we need to start thinking about the future, even though there's so much uncertainty. I just came out with an ebook called the Pandemic Business Playbook, to help people think about, there are some, things we can plan on based on probabilities about our customers and, how they're going to be buying in the future. And so I think that's where a lot of businesses need to be focusing on. And that's what I'm trying to determine for myself right now as well.
So I like, the book, The Market Rebellion, and you talk about this in a lot of your videos, how it really changes how, businesses should really look at, that customer relationship and building that.
Absolutely.
So how do you see this really changing that? Like, are we still going to be able to build that relationship with the customer if most of our business is virtual? Like, how do you see that changing?
Well, absolutely, I do. In fact, a lot of people, Justin, have written me and said, "Oh my gosh, Mark, your book was prescient. You basically predicted what would be happening in a crisis like this." Because what's happening is, you can't fake it. The subtitle of my book, Marketing Rebellion, is "The Most Human Company Wins." And what we're seeing right now is things are kind of sorting out, where companies are trying to be human, and when they're not authentically human, I mean really compassionate, maybe even vulnerable, they're falling on their face. And the companies that are getting out in the community and feeding medical workers and helping with medical supplies and pivoting in that way, those are the companies we're going to remember at the end of this thing, right? They're realizing that in this, transitional period that we're in, during this crisis, is that maybe the brand and the emotion and the loyalty that we build with people are more important than, trying to be desperate about short-term sales. And so I think definitely the things I talk in the book are sorting out right now, and in many ways coming true.
Yeah, I think it's a tough thing for some people to realize, especially when in something like this going on that's unprecedented, where when we start to operate out of, an idea of scarcity rather than, that idea of abundance, and going like, what can I teach? What can I put out there in the world, rather than thinking like, how can I get that next sell? Because it changes your mindset when you're
It
putting
does.
out there.
And look, I want to say something that, I'm sympathetic to anybody who's struggling right now. And I think we should all extend a lot of just sort of forgiveness and grace to people who might be doing things that we think are a little desperate, because maybe they've got babies at home they're trying to feed, right?
Mhm.
So, I think we just have to be kind to everybody and try not to be judgmental. But I mean, and look, I'm an honest person. I'm not a rah cheerleader kind of guy. I'm optimistic, but I'm rational.
Right.
And there is going to be a shakeout. A lot of businesses aren't going to make it. And right now, there's a lot of people out there saying, oh, this is the time, we can be remarkable. We can write that book, or we can get that, beach body we always wanted. And here's the truth. Landing on the other side is remarkable. That is everybody's job right now. That is remarkable. That's all you need to be focused on right now. And, just hanging in there, finding a way to be relevant for the next, whatever, 4, 5, 6 months till things start, cooking again. And that's what we all need to be focused on. And that's for a small business, for an entrepreneur, that's heroic.
You talk about a lot about human compassion and put that in your content. Be human, show your vulnerable side. You had a speaking engagement that I watched on YouTube, and you talked about a blog that you wrote, Hugging a Brand. If you could share that story with us, I love that story.
Yeah.
That was great.
Well, thanks. And it was sort of a kind of a pivotal event that opened my eyes to some things that, like a lot of people, I'm a shop around customer. As I show in my book, and, this is not my opinion, I back it up with research from, Accenture, McKinsey, and Deloitte, that loyalty is in decline. We're a nation and a world of shop around customers. And when it comes to hotels, I'm the same way. I really don't care. Just put me up close to wherever I'm supposed to be working the next day, except when I go to teach at Rutgers University. I've taught at Rutgers. I go up there a couple times a year. I've taught up there for 12 years. And every time I go there, I stay at the Hyatt in New Brunswick for one reason. The lady at the front desk, Terry, knows me. And when I walk through the door, she says, hello, Mr. Schaefer. And a couple of years ago, I walked through the door and it was a blizzard outside. And I had been delayed by 5 hours, and I missed my meeting, and I missed my meals, and I was exhausted and frozen like a popsicle. And she just took one look at me and knew I was having a bad day. And when I got back to my room later that night, I had a cheese and fruit plate and a carafe of wine and a nice note from Terry, hoping my day would be better. And the next day, when I checked out, she came out from behind the registration desk and she hugged me goodbye. And I was just so taken aback by this singular example of humanity when I was suffering in my own way. And so I wrote a blog post about it. And I said how I was hugged by a brand, literally, because in my mind, this human connection is what matters. There are no amount of ads that Hyatt could take out that would force me to stay at that hotel every time. It's impossible. It's irrelevant. And great branding is about building an emotional connection to what you do. And that's why small businesses, coaches, and entrepreneurs, I think, are particularly well suited for the time we're in, because increasingly that emotional connection isn't to, a box of cornflakes or a certain brand of soap because it's lemon scented. It's because of the people who make it, the people who are behind it, the founders, the entrepreneurs, the innovators, the technical experts, our friends and neighbors. That's who we trust. And so to me, this lady at the front desk, she's my Facebook friend now, right? I'll always stay at that hotel. And I think it's just a great sort of micro lesson into the way the world works. I mean, marketing is sick. We've just lost our way. We just, we kind of drink our own Kool-Aid. And I guess I'm getting on my own soapbox a little bit here, but I saw some research a few months ago that showed how consumers are resigned to being abused by marketers. And marketers think, oh, well, we have to spam them and we have to do robocalls because, we provide all these other free services and this justifies it. And customers don't think that way. They don't see the same value exchange, right? All they see is you're abusing me and interrupting me when I don't want to be interrupted, and you got to stop it. And that's one of the things I emphasize in the book is we need to step back. We're all marketers and business people, but we're also consumers. We know what we hate. And if you're doing marketing that people hate, stop. That's the first step toward human-centered marketing. Stop doing what people hate.
So for the small businesses out there that are going through this struggle and that are, what is your number one piece of advice for them? Like, how do you keep that human connection when you're living in this time of scarcity?
Well, there's really two phases to what we're facing. And as you and I are recording this, we are still definitely in the teeth of the crisis. And one of the things we have to consider is we think about our good old Psychology 101 class when we learned about that pyramid, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? And what we learned is that human beings, they have to satisfy their basic needs before they can think about aspirational things, right? So at the bottom of the pyramid, you had to be able to eat. You had to be able to breathe clean air, right? You had to have a roof over your head. And then above that, you didn't want to be lonely. You didn't want to be isolated. And at the very top of the pyramid, it's, should I buy a boat? It's like aspirational, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if you're in a business right now that focuses on the bottom of the pyramid, helping people right now to not be lonely or not be afraid or to have something to eat, double down, right? Yeah. You're golden right now. But if you're like me, who's a marketing consultant, that's sort of an aspirational thing. And so I've got to think about, how do I become relevant during this crisis down at the bottom of the pyramid, right? Now, after the crisis, things will come back. Things are going to change. We have to kind of envision how our customers are going to change. But, let me give you one quick example of what I mean about going to the bottom of the pyramid. I got an email a few weeks back from a local rancher. So this guy, has cattle, and he provides steak to high-end restaurants. So he sent the email and he said, well, look, I know you can't enjoy these restaurants right now because everybody's locked in. I will bring my steaks to your door. So he was at the top of the pyramid, fine dining. And he said, people don't know where they're going to get enough meat right now. I will bring it to them. All right. So that's what I mean about he's a B2B cattle guy.
Sure.
And he's sort of reimagining his business to say, how do I reimagine what I do to be relevant to where people are right now?
Yeah.
Mark, I know you don't have a crystal ball and it's all, perspective here, but with this COVID-19 and, assuming, down the road, obviously we'll get a vaccine and things will open up a little bit. Mm-hmm. But due to the stress that we're handling right now, how do you think that will affect us going forward in marketing?
So tell me more a little about what kind of stress do you mean? Like just business stress or just really like psychological stress?
I would say I'm talking more of a business stress.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, a lot of it is some businesses are doing great right now. Some businesses are thriving right now. And here's a prediction that I think you can take to the bank. I'm projecting that in the next 6 months, we are going to see a record number of startups
Sure.
because, we've got a lot of dire economic projections, but the one thing that the accountants and the statisticians can't measure or can't consider is ingenuity. And every time there's a problem, American entrepreneurs are going to figure it out. If there's a chance to make money, they're going to figure it out. And here was one of the most amazing things that just made my heart leap. The day after Governor Cuomo in New York announced that everybody had to wear face masks, I saw an ad on Facebook for a Pittsburgh Steeler face mask for me. I'm a Steeler fan, right? So some entrepreneur out there put two and two together that I'm a Steeler fan who needs a face mask. And the very next day it was there. That's America, baby. We were made for this. I mean, we were made for this. And the amount of innovation that's going on right now is literally breathtaking. I just read a story recently about the 17-year-old girl who started this delivery business where she's getting subscriptions from people in her city, and she's going around and collecting different items from local businesses. And every week she's bringing them a box of different types of goods from her local businesses, right? So boom, she's at the bottom of the pyramid. She's helping support her local businesses. She's 17 years old, I mean, we're going to see so much of that. So I'm not as dismayed by a lot of the dire economic projections that a lot of people have, but we can't be still. Even businesses that are succeeding right now, we need to think about how things are going to change. Let me give you one small example. My wife and I, we've subscribed to this thing called it's called HelloFresh, right? So like 2 or 3 times a week, we get a box. It has a recipe, has all the ingredients you need to make a meal. And we've never done this before, never thought of doing this, but we kind of like the idea of having this delivered to our door. We don't have to go to the grocery store. And we found out that we like it because it teaches us like new ways to cook. And so we decided when this whole thing is over, we're going to keep getting this thing. Now, think about this. We're going to have a new relationship with food when this is over. We're buying food in a completely different channel we didn't even know existed before this crisis, right? That's just one example. So for every business out there, we need to be thinking about how are the customers going to be different. If you're like in the vacation or travel business, you're going to have to go through a period of like waking your customers up to say, hey, it's safe now. You can get on that plane. You don't have to be afraid of that doorknob anymore, right? And we have to remind people, we're going to have to remind people of what life was like, before this crisis.
Yeah. I think you're spot on there, Mark. We're going to figure out how to change things, and I think we've all been seeing businesses ramping things up or changing. Whether it's different companies making the ventilators or masks or all these different products, we're figuring out ways to do it, and that's what's going to happen moving forward. And I think that's some very spot on insight when you say we're going to see all these different startups. We're going to see these new companies, new businesses. I think Paul and I have talked about it. It seems like this has maybe sped up some things with some businesses, either businesses that were failing.
100%. And, one of the good things I'm seeing that's kind of energizing is that, basically people are like just cutting through so much bureaucracy right now to get things done, right? Mm-hmm. In the medical community, in the business community, in government. And look, I'm not sure, if you guys are aware of this or not, or maybe you are, but I had the virus, right? And so I'm recovered now. I'm good. My wife had it. She's good. But while I had the virus, I couldn't see a doctor, right? Because I'm contagious with this virus.
Sure.
Well, what do? Telemedicine, right? I'm having a video call. Do you know how great that is? Not to have to drive to a doctor and sit for an hour in a waiting room. Look, there's going to be a lot of great changes that come out of this, a lot of great innovations. We're going to be teaching our kids in a different way. We're going to be connecting. We're going to be entertaining ourselves in different ways. I think, a lot of people are stuck at home right now. And I think when this is all over, the children are going to say, remember when we used to play those games? Could we do that again? I mean, there's going to be a lot of amazing, ideas and traditions and new consumer behaviors that come out of this thing.
What are you telling restaurants? If you're consulting a restaurant right now, what would you tell them? Especially let's talk about a fine dining restaurant where, part of the experience is going to the restaurant. They don't really do well takeout because part of the fun is going there and dining and having the ambiance, but they can't do that right now. So what would your advice be to a restaurant like that?
Well, honestly, I mean, that's one of the industries that is most vulnerable, because what we're hearing now is that even when the restaurants are opening, they have to open with, maybe 2/3 fewer diners. And what we're seeing is that the income they're making from the diners isn't covering the cost of the additional staff that they need to come in, right? So this is a tough one. And that is a business, if they're not, making it on takeout, some businesses, they're going to have to only make it on takeout, because as long as you have the social distancing thing, they're not going to be able to fill their restaurant to the point where they're going to be profitable. So, it's like, this is like survival mode. Conserve your cash, look for whatever government help you can have, get creative with delivery, takeout, like the cattle rancher, finding new ways to create, a fine dining experience in somebody's house. Some businesses, just like, the cruise industry, there's no easy answer. It's just literally, you just gotta, you gotta fight for the next 6 months and get to the other side.
I think
you
it
just
falls
have to, the goal is to arrive.
Yeah. Like you said, I think it's like the top of the pyramid, right? Whether it's fine dining or some of the travel industry, I think there's a lot of companies that fall in that same category, where it's like you said, having to wake up your customers or figure out a way to bring down the scale. Like, where can I fit in that pyramid and bring my product to the customer? So I think it's applicable in several different areas. But
there's no easy answer. I mean, there's no, silver bullet. Some business, I mean, there's going to be a shakeout in some industries, and it's just going to be, you just got to make, the goal is to make it on the other side.
Sure. So speaking of that, making it on the other side, like, Mark, what projects are you currently working on, or what are you putting in place right now so you can make it on the other side?
Well, obviously what I'm trying to do is, fit into the new online world. So in terms of my speaking, so I've developed a new talk. Instead of getting up on a stage for, an hour, I have a new talk. It's like 20 or 30 minutes. It's going to be something more than a talking head. It's going to be entertaining. And the topic is fight to the other side, right? So, what are the, 4 or 5 things we need to be working on right now, to get to the other side? And I've already had a really good response to that. So, that'll be cooking. Before the crisis, I had an idea for a new book. And what I'm trying to do now is think about, is that book still relevant? When would that book come out? Would it still, would I be at the bottom of the pyramid? Will I need to be at the bottom of the pyramid? So I'm trying to, sort that out. I did some original research to try to figure out when big conferences and events would come back. And, I'm thinking it's probably not going to be till the end of next year.
Wow.
I think small meetings, small company meetings will come back. But, there's a couple big issues that people don't want to go to big conferences unless they feel safe. And that takes a vaccine. And the vaccine isn't going to be here until sometime next year. And big conferences, there's a big lag time between, even if you think people are going to come, then it takes 6 or 9 months to line up the speakers and plan. And there's also an issue about getting insurance. The insurance industry is in turmoil right now because of all the controversies about who's going to pay for all this stuff. So it's a very, very complicated issue. Some companies have already announced they're canceling all live meetings for next year. So, and that was sort of my bread and butter. So, I'm kind of pivoting my consulting in new ways. I'm creating some new offers, some new ways to connect to people.
Sure.
So I'll be all right, but I'm still a work in progress. We had my wife was sick for 3 weeks and I was sick, so sort of like I've been in sleep mode for about 7 weeks. I'm just waking up trying to figure out, hey, what's happened while I was gone? What the hell's going on here?
Yeah, we get it.
In terms of content, you mentioned a little bit, when you do your speaking engagements, it's normally for an hour, but you're saying when you're doing these speaking engagements or whatever online, you're cutting it to 20 or 30 minutes. Is that because people's attention span for content is much, much lower than it would be if there was a live engagement?
Well, it depends. I mean, people can, the problem, Paul, is that, people don't have a short attention span, right? They'll sit there and they'll binge Game of Thrones for 5-6 straight hours, all right? But the problem is, an online conference on increasing your, improving your sales techniques is not Game of Thrones. Now, there's a business opportunity there. There really is. Because, if we made online events that are exciting and compelling and Hollywood-like, then people would pay more money. They'd be able to hire people like me. But for the time being, I'm trying to slip in to boring online, okay, it's time to get our marketing department together. Well, wait a minute, everybody. Guess what? Tomorrow, we're going to have Mark Shaefer in. He's a globally recognized marketing expert, and he's going to provide some inspiration and some uplifting ideas, right? So that's sort of where I'm trying to fit in, 20, 30 minutes into something that's boring. That's what I'm trying to create, because there's tons of those boring meetings going on right now.
You've got a lot, and you do have a lot of energy. Paul and I both watched your content. You get a lot of stuff going on. So what is the best way for our audience, our viewers, to get a hold of you, look you up, find your content? What's the best way for that?
Well, it's really easy. You can find everything about me at businessesgrow.com. And I've got a blog that people love. I have a podcast there that's free for everyone. And you can find my books. You can follow me on social media. And it's all at Businesses Grow.
Awesome. And we'll make sure to put all that down in the show comments.
Wait, Justin, I got one more question I want to ask, because I'm really fascinated about marketing and such. What about, do you think placement ads are still viable? Like, when we're watching Game of Thrones or something like that, and there's an axe, or I guess Game of Thrones wouldn't be a good one because it's, medieval. But what about a popular show and somebody's eating a popular cereal in their living room while you're watching? Is that still a thing like they did in ET, or is that past?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of benefit to that. We actually even see, some results of that. I'll tell you an amazing story. So Hanes brands actually had a record year last year. So you think, Hanes, what's going on with Hanes? So their champion, they own the Champion brand, took off, went crazy, right? Now, here's what happened. Justin Bieber wore a Champion sweatshirt on a video. That's it. And then a few weeks later, every store in the country sold out of maroon Champion hoodies.
Wow.
Why? Because Kim Kardashian wore one. That's it. So it sort of hints at the power of influencer marketing and product placement. Now, Hanes didn't, that was just pure luck, right? Justin Bieber, I don't know if he went to shop at, Kohl's or Target that day or what to get his Champion sweatshirt. But there he was in his Champion sweatshirt. And there's tremendous power for cars and fashion and consumer goods with product placements like that. I mean, we're going to have to get more creative because traditional advertising is going away. It's we don't see TV ads like we used to because we're watching Amazon or we're watching Netflix. We don't hear ads on the radio anymore because we listen to Spotify or iTunes or an audiobook or something. And so our advertising consumption is probably down 95% compared to where it was 10 years ago. So we're going to have to absolutely find new ways to tell our story.
It's about where's the customer's attention at, right? And if those businesses can adapt and be agile with that. Mm-hmm. So with the Actions and Limits podcast in mind, we like to ask our guests, Mark, what would you say is one action that we can take to really, business minded, like the business owners out there? What is one action that they can put into place that will really make a difference right now?
Well, I want to go back to one of the conversations we had a little earlier about, stop doing what people hate. And, we are building this emotional connection today with owners, with founders, with leaders, with technical experts. And so I think we need to think about, how do we show up? How do we show our smiles, our caring, our passion, our expertise? Instead of having stock photos on our site, put our people on the site, put our customers on the site, be real, be human. That's what we all want. That's what every customer wants. And the most human company will win. And I truly believe that's the future of marketing.
I like that. I like that a lot, Mark. And the opposite side of that, these limits that we place on ourselves, what is a limit that you see that businesses are holding themselves back with that we need to remove?
Well, I mean, this is a time truly to be bold because in a lot of cases we got nothing to lose. Right. And, this is something that I've had to overcome, in my own life as I've tried, lots of different things, is the fear of maybe just looking stupid or something like that. Mm-hmm. But today, I think this is the perfect time to be bold. I mean, I've got a business partner. We're going to be starting a new business in the middle of this thing. And, we're saying, look, we're just going to be bold. We're going to be brave. We're going to act like, we're a company that's 100 years old and that, people need to be, buying stuff from us because really, you've got nothing to lose. And I think, people want to hear that. They want to see that. We need to be brave right now. We're living in history. I mean, This is what we're going to be telling our grandchildren someday. All right. So what's the story you want to tell? Do you want to say, man, I really screwed up. I blew it. I kept trying to sell the same old thing and drove my business into the ground. Or you're going to say, I was brave. I was courageous. I was generous. This is how I helped my community. This is how I helped my customers when they needed me most. And that's why we have the business that we have today. This is your chance to write your story that you're going to tell for the rest of your life. This is the story you're going to tell for the rest of your life. And you've got a choice right now to choose what that narrative is going to be. And my narrative is going to be brave.
There you go. Mark, that's super powerful, man. Hey, thank you so much for coming on our show. I think you had a lot of great insight to share with our viewers and our listeners. So again, thank you so much for being on the show, Mark.
All right. Thank you, fellas. Appreciate it.
All right, Paul, what a great guest. I mean, I know we've been, looking forward to having Mark on the show for a while and finally get him on here. And, man, a lot of great insight he shared. Man, I was excited to get him on the show. Well, what was your biggest takeaway?
I just thought, he was a wealth of knowledge, with marketing. I wanted to pick his brain just for my own business. Yeah. I'm fascinated with marketing a lot. So having him on the show and him being a global icon in the marketing industry was quite an honor to interview him.
Yeah, I know you and I have both been checking out his content. So everyone listening, you make sure to look him up. Really entertaining speaker. Even if you're just watching him on YouTube, I'm sure it's a very different experience, seeing him in person. But just the way he delivers his message, and it's informational for anyone that has a business, and realizing how do you get in contact with your customers out there and building that relationship. So I think anyone would benefit from checking out Mark's content. And I know I've picked up a couple things along the way from just doing our own research on him. So, everyone out there, check him out. We'll put all the stuff down in the show notes. So, well, we can wrap up the show with another segment of Ask Paul Anything. And Paul, you said you found one of the questions in the email that stood out to you?
I did. This is from Brandy from Washington State, not Washington, D.C., Washington State.
Got it.
So, up in that area, the Northwest. And her question is, Paul, when COVID-19 is over, where do you want to travel?
That's a good question.
Yeah. And the answer to that is I've been craving a Philly cheesesteak, and you got to go to Philly to get it. So I am going to Philadelphia to get a Philly cheesesteak, and then I'm going to go to the Italian district and see all my friends and buy some of the great food that they're growing in the Philadelphia district, the Italian district rather, in Philadelphia. Okay. So right. There's where I'm going to be.
So I know you've been to Philadelphia before. You have like a spot you've gone to for like that really good Philly cheesesteak?
I'm gonna try a different one. Okay. What I want to do is I'm gonna go to a local. I go to somebody local and go, hey, where do I gotta go? Because I've been to Geno's and I've been to Pat's, and when I talk to the locals and they go, that's tourist trap. That's I mean, no offense if you like Geno's and Pat's, I did, because I'm a California guy, but I know that there's a hole in the wall mom and pop Philly place that's just going to knock my socks off. And so I'm going to do a little research with the people in Philadelphia because they know best.
There you go. I like that idea, traveling to get some food. I think that's how I plan most of my travel vacations too. It's like, what are we going to eat when we get there? So I'm on par for that. So, but again, I'm glad Mark Shaefer was able to join us on the show. Really great show today, Paul. I hope everyone out there learned something, had something to take away. So.
Great. For Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
All right. See you next Monday. Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform, and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.